Hey everyone, welcome back to another Nerdrotic recap. As usual, we are talking about Game of Thrones these Sunday nights, the official Arya's Prayer podcast that Gary started back in the day and I joined, and now I'm bogarting the mic for the evening to guide us through this one. But joining me as usual, or the actual host of this podcast, Gary Buechler up in San Francisco. How's it going, Gary?
It is going great. How are you, John?
Good. Thank you for letting me lead this one. I just had an
All
agenda
good.
written up, so wanted to take a little.
It's all good, man.
So, man, what a good episode! I've been a little skeptical this season because it's moving so quickly, and we're not used to Game of Thrones moving this fast, right? But this was a good one. I liked this episode, even with the little meta moments that it had.
Yeah, maybe I did. I think it did. I didn't catch them all. I only got to see I only watched it kind of 1.5 episodes. I kind of tried to go through it again to take down some notes because it is really distracting to take notes while you're watching. I ended up having to pause it, especially those really huge scenes. And, we don't want to bury the lead on this one. Jon met Dany, and a lot of stuff happened this episode that could have been cringeworthy or rushed or stupid, and they really handled it well. Even though it's become a little bit predictable, it's still Game of Thrones. It's still doing that Game of Thrones thing where nothing is easy. And it really was. I came away. I can't wait to watch it again. I
agree. So usually we go through, from in continuity that the episode goes through. But I want to start with some of the really cool moments in this episode. So let's talk about the ending because I think it's pretty crazy. We've got Jaime getting retribution from Joffrey's death and poisoning the Queen of Thorns. Now, this is interesting to me because I think it works right in the story, but it almost as if she reveals that she killed Joffrey to Jaime, even though he's already chosen to poison her in a similar fashion. And I think this has a lot of things going on, but how, it's almost like he chose poison, which is like a very, apt vengeance upon her, but he didn't supposedly know that he should be choosing poison. I don't know. Why do you think Jaime chose poison, and what do you think of this death for the Queen of Thorns?
Jaime was trying to be as honorable as possible and letting her go gracefully. I think he definitely would have changed his mind knowing what he knew after she drank it really fast. She's all, oh, is it going to be painful? No. Okay, good. Oh, and one more thing. I killed your son, and I'm kind of surprised he didn't whip out his sword and behead her right there. But this is the evolution of Jaime. Jaime is still, even though he's madly in love with Cersei, a better person. And, this was still, the Lady of Highgarden. This is the Queen of Thorns. She deserved, respect no matter what. And I love the chivalry between those two after, they talked about how do we fight? Not well. Where was her army, by the way? Were they spread out somewhere or something? I'm not sure. They just made it. It was a sack completely. So they were caught by surprise. And I love that they mentioned the Whispering Wood with Robb, because that's the first thing I wrote down is, oh, Jaime did the same thing that happened to him, But yeah, getting back to Queen of Thorns, definitely, I think he would have gone with the flaying a little bit, although he knows Joffrey's a cunt. He kind of agreed with her. You almost saw a nod when she said Joffrey's a cunt. He's all, yeah, he was, still,
Yep.
I don't know. I definitely think he would have thought better of it had he known it before, knowing the whole story.
Yeah. The Queen, Lady Olenna says a few interesting things too. She kind of prophesizes, maybe it was just trying to get under Jaime's skin, but she calls Cersei a disease, says she regrets that she had a part in spreading that disease, and that Cersei is going to be the death of Jaime. And I think, this is something maybe the audience has been. Obviously, Cersei shouldn't be viewed as a very sympathetic character. I think the audience may view her as a bit of a disease to the kingdom, or at least we should. And the Queen of Thorns saying this to Jaime, I think that's what we're thinking is going to, this is a prediction from the audience through her mouth in a way. And it's another one of those examples of, I think, getting away from George R. R. Martin, yeah, what did you think of her predictions in episode?
That I think it was more of a way to just dig at him.
Yeah.
And that is definitely not how George R. R. Martin would have written it. That was definitely a TV moment. I kind of agree with you on that one. Still satisfying, and because Cersei is so different in the book than she is in the show, and the show was really parallel with her for a while, but actually the show's made her much more of a sympathetic character, believe it or not.
Surprisingly, yeah.
Yeah. Especially when you know the later chapters in Feast for Crows and stuff, when you finally get into Cersei's head and you see how she sees the world, and it's pretty much the biggest. It's fantasy penis envy. She is totally pissed she was born a woman, but yeah, that comment, it was just more. It was monologuing a bit.
It was monologuing. Yeah, I agree.
And the Queen of Thorns in the books is way more. She's super just subtle about how she says things, and yeah, but it's still really, really freaking good, by the way.
Yeah, we'll probably reach back at this at the end of the episode. I want to go through with you, Gary, and see what you think is going to be similar to what we see in the books and stuff that you think is going to be pretty much show only. But we'll save that till a little bit later. I kind of want to move on and talk about Bran, the three-eyed raven. He's arrived back at Winterfell, and he has a couple moments. The main, he had his entrance into the gates on the cart, and then he also had, more importantly, the discussion with Sansa, which was. I cried a little, like I shed a little tear. I wasn't like sobbing, but like when he's describing that he saw her get raped by Ramsay and is like, it was snowing that day, just like today. Like that moment was just so crazy. Like you see the weirwood behind him, like on the photo you see right now with the face of the tree staring next to him. And he's just recalling this horrific moment in his sister's recent past. What did you think of Bran coming back to Winterfell? And where do you think this is going?
It was such a weird scene because it was so half emotional and it was great to see them, but I'm kind of glad they went with because I'm not sure I entirely understand what the three-eyed raven is in the show, and I think we finally see that, and I kind of wish they would have, I wish they wouldn't have skipped that season with Bran. I think that was a mistake. I think they should have shown some more training. Did 15 minutes here and there to show the training, because Bran is not Bran anymore. Bran, excuse me, Bran is dead, and he is a part of whatever this three-eyed raven network is. What I believe it is he's part of the world now. He's part of the old three-eyed raven and the one before that, and it's just part of this network. So he's the internet, and he's a god. He's become a god, and we've lost the emotion. He's ascended to a higher plane, and he's just there. Emotions are beneath him now, and he's got a purpose to serve, and that's why he said he couldn't be the Lord of Winterfell. I couldn't even dream to be right now, because he can't even think down to that level. He's got so much more to do, and it makes you wonder about like what happens to him. Say they survive the long night, what happens to Bran then? It's like, what's his role? It was trippy. It was cool.
Is he just going to hang out in the weirwood in the at the weirwood and just chill there? And has the three-eyed raven moved to Winterfell? Is that essentially what's going on with this storyline?
Yes. Yeah. And I think he would, we'll talk about the differences in the book, but he's going to have to be near that. He's going to have to be near the weirwood. So he'll be hanging there a lot. I don't think we're going to get a lot of scenes with him because he's really good. His character's really good for information, but he can almost give too much. And so that's why I'm glad they brought up the fact that he's not there yet. It's just pieces for him, and he's, still putting them together because it got dumped on him, and maybe that caused him damage. Maybe that did some damage to his brain. I don't know. I'm assuming a lot here. But maybe we'll find out later.
Something has changed.
Yeah.
I want to stick in Winterfell. I want to stick in Winterfell, and so we can kind of get that out of the way, and not have to come back here for the rest of the. So let's talk about Sansa acting as Queen of the North. The episode's title. Now that we've talked about, what I think are we'll get to the war maneuvering in the episode. But as far as like moments are concerned, for me, the Bran moment and the Lady Olenna moment at the end are probably the two big ones. But I want to get into a little bit about the title of the episode, The Queen's Justice. And we start with Dany, we get Cersei, we get Sansa. I honestly thought we might get Lady Stoneheart in this episode based on the title, which we did not. And then we get Lady Olenna at the end. There were a couple scenes thrown in that were thrown in that really didn't fit too well with the theme. But for the most part, it was on target. And I want to talk about Sansa kind of as acting Queen of the North. We can see she's like amazing at logistics, but she's getting a lot of advice from Littlefinger that was the antithesis of what Jon is focused on, right? So you can understand, I think this episode, more than any, brought into some clarity why they're not jiving in their thought process right now. And it seems like Sansa's very focused on like the running of Winterfell, the war for the Seven Kingdoms, the war for the Iron Throne. And Jon's like, it doesn't matter if the dead come and kill us all, right? So he's not focused on the same things she's focused on. The advice Littlefinger is giving her has nothing to do with what Jon is trying to achieve. So I think this was illuminating to me to see that Sansa is less concerned about the things Jon is concerned about and more concerned about the things that maybe Ned Stark would have been concerned about, pre getting hauled down to King's Landing.
Well, yeah, she saw all that day-to-day stuff amidst all the horror and abuse. She saw, how they paid for armor and, where the chamber pots went and how clothes were made. So she is amazing in that stuff. And that's why it was good that she corrected Littlefinger. Like, really nobody knows Cersei. You do not know Cersei better than me. She spent a possible dying hour with Cersei. So you get to know somebody in situations like that. And, this is kind of stuff we were waiting for. And I almost think it took them too long to do this. I was hoping to see like moments of it in season 5, which was just the darkest season. So I'm glad we're seeing Bossy Boots Sansa kicking some ass. And, I love that whole, like, she noticed that there wasn't leather in the armor. That might have been a bit too much, but that was still, cool.
They wanted to show her operational ability to lead, right?
And she's a great facilitator and manager. Yeah. I would say I would hire her for sure. And I would work for her too. But we also got that, I kind of wish they would have left this out of the trailer because I think it's going to be Littlefinger's only good speech. But what I wrote in my notes is, Littlefinger's back, because he felt kind of weird and cartoonish. And now, we see, and it was still a great speech. Like, you visualize everything possible in your mind happening.
He's basically saying, like, paranoia is good. You need to fight all battles simultaneously in your head so that you're prepared to do whatever you need to do, right? It was an interesting mindset.
That's how everybody should live at all times. I could not agree with him more. I was like, hooray, Littlefinger. I mean, you're evil, but you're right. I mean, that's how you should see things, especially when, who knows who could be killing you at any moment. It's him trying to pry Sansa away. And, she's also going to find out it's not easy to rule either. She's going to come across some adversity too. So I think they wanted to show you this scene first of like, here's Boss Sansa right before they throw the typical Game of Thrones monkey wrench in. And they're going to, nothing's easy in this show. And it's just, shades of gray, which is great. But, it's still, is she made for ruling? We don't know. She was still willing to give it up when Bran showed up. She was, and that's why we know that like this isn't Dark Sansa. That's kind of where I'm getting at. I think we were kind of waiting to see if we'd actually get it or not. But her willingness to like give it up to Bran when he showed up was good. We'll see. She's still, she's not totally lost on us. I still think there is a lot of Cersei in her. And Ramsay.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes, especially if she is going to be the warden of Winterfell for a lot of this while Jon is off fighting, dead people.
And I think she could very well Jon never saw that day-to-day stuff. And it's good that you point out, he sees the big picture and stuff, but you can get obsessed with that. And we saw in this episode that, it's really hard to articulate it. And I was kind of worried that this stuff would be too easy. Like, oh, there's White Walkers. Okay, we better fight them. Let's go. We're beyond that. So I'm glad that didn't happen.
Yeah. So was Lady Olenna, sorry, going back to, was Lady Olenna on your death draft?
No.
Oh, I thought she may have been on yours. Maybe she was on mine. I feel like she was brought up.
I wrote it down somewhere in here.
Yeah, take a look if you can find it while I bring up the
ones I can remember are Pod and
you had
Tormund and I think Littlefinger. I had Pod, Tormund, and no, I think I left off Littlefinger.
No, you had Littlefinger. Littlefinger. Because I said I thought he was going to die later. I had Jorah, I know, and that was going to be my transition here. My death draft is looking terrible unless I had Lady Olenna on it, which I don't remember, because Jorah is looking less sickly than he's looked in a long time, thanks to Sam doing emergency surgery on him or torturing him last week. But we see that it worked, and Sam gets a little bit of a compliment for what he did. He's lucky he didn't get expelled. So what's the maester's name that's training Sam right now?
Marwyn.
Marwyn?
Yeah.
So Mr. Marwyn, he basically tells Sam, like, you didn't do what I asked you to do. This was extremely hard. It could have gone horribly wrong, but you're lucky it worked out. Good job on you. Never do that again. Organize all these books or scrolls. And this is the one where this scene didn't really fit in this episode to me. I'm curious why they did it this week and maybe not next week. Maybe they had time to fill or something, but it just really, I would have preferred maybe having it stick to the theme of Queen's Justice and maybe showing more of the sacking of Highgarden and the sacking of Casterly Rock. But it was cool to see that Jorah's good. He's probably going to head back to Dany's side, and we'll see how that goes. Where do you think the Jorah story is going, and how do you like the stuff at the Citadel so far?
I'm going to agree with you first that I think, and maybe they couldn't, maybe when I see the future episodes, I'll realize why they couldn't do it, but they could have saved the Jorah scene for next. We could have sat on that for another week. Maybe there was a timing thing. And I also think when he was told to organize the books, I was half waiting for him to be books about Dragonglass and the White Walkers and stuff, which they still could be. So that was a little out of it. And no, they weren't trying to fill time. This episode was hella long. Sorry to use a Northern Californian phrase right there. Sorry, what was the question again? I just got onto my thing.
What do you think of the Citadel, and where do you think Jorah's going next?
Jorah, for one, let's hear it for middle-aged sexy man. Woohoo! Right on, Jorah.
Scars and all. He's like Deadpool walking around Westeros right now. Right. This is Melissa, my wife, Melissa, who will be joining us in future podcasts. This is one of our favorite characters because we love fools for love. Okay, and he's an idiot. And kind of reminds me of myself sometimes, kind of a dumbass, does stupid shit. But I thought it was really cool. Poetic, a little typical, a little basic. He got healed really fast, but it had to be Sam. And this is definitely something, not to get too ahead, George R. R. Martin would never do in the book. But we could be surprised. I don't know. Where Jorah goes from here, I think we get to finally see how badass he is. Okay, the guy's a survivor, and he's also a hell of a warrior. Remember, like, he took out in season 1, he took out one of the top Dothraki. Like, he's a fucking gladiator. Like, you could put him one-on-one against anyone, and he'll probably come out on top.
Yeah, he won that big gladiator fight, in season 5 too.
Who wins the battle between Jorah or Brienne?
Okay, we're talking about show here and not book.
Book is
Brienne hands down.
Yeah.
I think Brienne wins this battle, but it will be extremely hard. Jorah's like top 10.
Top 10
fighters.
Yeah, I would say he's not top 5. You would put the Mountain, the Hound, Brienne, Jaime with 2 hands above him for sure.
If Jaime had 2 hands, he'd be the best. I mean, that's with the Hound and the Mountain. Jaime's the best. Yeah, dude. He's up there. You know, Jon's kind of badass too. You know?
John's good. Where do you
good.
think? I like Jon.
Yes.
Where do you think Jorah goes from here? Is he like literally
Dany? Oh my god,
straight to Dany?
And immediately going to get friend zoned again. Like Dario's out of the picture, but you know Jon's down there right now. He better hurry.
So you think Dany and Jon are going to do it?
I think that is so. That is the sun will rise in the east. It's going to happen.
Maybe the prince or princess who is promised is the kid of Dany and Jon, and not one of the two or both of them.
Ooh, should I tell a spoiler? I know a spoiler. Okay, so why I didn't put Lady Olenna on my death draft is because I knew she was going to die, so that'd be cheating. I know there's a lot of spoilers out there, folks, and they're really accurate. After tonight's episode, like they are 100% accurate. I was just thinking like the new hashtag after episode 7, but I'm going to save that. I'm going to save it. Never mind. Sorry, shouldn't have said anything. That's mean.
So, where do you? Give up the spoiler. Is Jorah gonna show up with Dany?
The hashtag after episode 7 will be boat sex.
Oh,
boat sex.
Episode 7 is gonna have some
boat sex. Now it could be Jorah and Jon. It could be Tyrion and Jon. It could be Tormund and a White. I don't know, but it's on a boat.
Interesting.
Boat sex.
I like it. So. Let's go to, where do you want to go next? Let's go to King's Landing next. I want to talk about Euron a little bit.
Let's talk about Euron.
So I was watching this, and for all those Walking Dead fans, like Euron is just basically fucking Negan from Walking Dead, right? Like it's Negan in Westeros is essentially, at least as far as the TV shows are concerned. Like, but anyway, I think that you're like my favorite version of Game of Thrones is if Euron sits on the Iron Throne at some point. I think that's my favorite.
I will save that for the book stuff for when we talk about the book stuff at the end. But as I'll remind everybody who hasn't read the book, who watches this podcast and just watched the show, this Euron is Sesame Street compared to the one in the book. The one in the book is. As funny and dark and scary and a kind of a warlock, and he's got it's just badass. And we'll talk. Oh, I freaking love Euron. Okay, Euron brought a humor back to this show that it was kind of missing, especially without the Hound so much. Just that dark, humor, and he's a real bad guy. And this show doesn't have a lot of real bad. Since Ramsay's gone, and Ramsay was just dark. I mean, dude, he is fun. I mean, just the whole, I need sexual tips from Jaime right there by the throne.
That was so funny when he's like, "Hey, I know you fuck your sister. Can I get some tips?" Like, that was so great. And he wasn't even like, "Can I get tips?" He's like, "When I fuck her, I'll give you tips on how to fuck your own sister." Like, it was crazy. I just love how Euron can pull that shit off and be really, really, really funny.
I laughed the second hardest. We're going to get to Dragonstone and the meeting of Jon stuff. That's where I laughed the hardest. That was the funniest scene, but that was fucking hilarious. I love Euron. And when he's walking Yara through, I keep wanting to sing Asha because it's Asha in the books.
Yes.
Through King's Landing, and he's like, I'm getting a little hard right now. And I think. Oh, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but yeah, it seems like I love the arousal over torture and power and stuff like that. And weren't you thinking when Euron was walking through King's Landing, like maybe Dany should be Queen of the Ashes? I mean, these are also the same people. Jaime pointed out were spitting on Cersei. What did he say a couple months ago? So I guess it's a couple months back. So they are really traveling fast, by the way.
You think Cersei would have had him bring them in naked after her experience? I mean, like, she's got to be like, okay, let's get people talking about other naked walks of shame instead of mine.
Unless she didn't want to be compared, but it was a Euron walking her in, because believe me, they would have been naked if she had them walking in. So, and Cersei was very pleased. I mean, see how shame, I know, right? And speaking of which, she's still alive, isn't she? Septinella.
I think she died.
She's still alive in pieces, probably.
Maybe. I don't know. I think maybe the Sir Gregor. Anyway,
when we get to the book stuff, remember that one. We'll get to that one.
We will. So I want to talk a little bit about the farewell, the long farewell for the final Sand Snake. Man, I thought we were done with them. I was so happy when they got slaughtered last week. And they had to come in, and this was probably another scene I could have done without in this episode. It just was like a little on the nose. But it was meaning, for me, it was a little on the nose. What were you about to say?
Oh, I think it was needed. You mean between her and Cersei down there just rubbing it in, and I thought that was, we're not going to get too many more scenes with Cersei, and it's pretty obvious that they're having her win right before, and maybe she doesn't lose. Maybe they don't even fight. Maybe they go full Jar Jar R.R. Martin and have them team up. Kind of flip the script on that one. I don't know, but that. We're not going to get too much classic conniving, evil, backstabbing Game of Thrones. So we got to enjoy the moments as they come. And yeah, I thought actually Cersei was a little merciful with her. I thought she was going to have the Hound, or not the Hound, excuse me,
Sir Gregor,
the Mountain, crush their skull. Yeah. And I'm really glad they didn't, because oh man, I've talked about it before in this podcast that was the worst scene for me out of all of them. Shireen Baratheon, everything that was seeing the Red Viper getting his head popped like a zit.
Yeah,
that ruined my night. I just went to bed sad, and it sucked. And it was date night with me and Melissa too, and it just killed it. Dead.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Thrones.
That'll do it. Yeah, fuck you, Game of Thrones.
Fuck you, Game of Thrones.
So I want to talk a little bit too about the scene. We get another Cersei and Jaime in bed, which is always so disturbing, even when it's just them laying there. And she's being really like she feels like she's already won. Like she doesn't have any reservations about being like, hey, nobody can mess with me now that I'm on the throne. Meanwhile, has she not been watching this show? Like, you're being on the throne is nothing. And so I think this is showing that she's getting even more sloppy, and that's saying something for show Cersei.
And this is where it parallels, with the books, because you get into Cersei's head and you realize she's kind of a dumbass. And it's not that she's unintelligent. She is arrogant as fuck and thinks she's better than everybody else. And that was excuse me, accurate as hell. And no, she doesn't. She has no. Okay, I don't want to jump ahead, but every time somebody's like, when Jon and Davos saw the dragons and hit the fucking deck, I mean that tells you, like, they hear about dragons, but you hear about them until you fucking see them.
We'll get there.
Same about the dead, and so she has no fucking idea. Even though she walked down, and we didn't mention in the podcast when she shot a hole in Balerion, the Dread's skull. I mean, you just destroyed a priceless artifact right there. What the hell? No respect. But she has no idea what's going. She's very happy with herself right now.
I think that this is kind of funny, because I think some people in the world right now may think that arrogant people who grow to power, who are very proud and make mistakes but never admit them, but they never seem to pay for their mistakes. Like, I can see this going for Cersei. Like, things have worked out for Cersei in spite of the fact that seems tactically just sloppy and horrible, but she's just so egotistical. She doesn't ever let it get in the way. Like, no matter what, she thinks she's going to win, and so she ends up winning. And I feel like there's some I could see having a situation where George R. R. Martin wants to make the point, like, in the world you want it to be, over pridefulness or being super proud or super egotistical will get you in trouble. Like, that's the moral world we want to live in, but this isn't that world.
No, this is
come out on top.
Fucking no, because you know what, egotistical, arrogant people win every day.
Right.
So and that you're right, and with Cersei, she did get her comeuppance. She had the walk of shame, and it strengthened her resolve. And that's the thing, is like, in the books, I know I was not supposed to mention this, but and same did the same thing in the show. Is like normally what would have broken the shit out of everybody. Her kids were dead. Like, walk me through the King's Landing, throw shit on me. My kids are dead. I can't get any lower. Fuck you all. And that's what's going to happen. So I think it's more of I don't give a fuck too. Like, she's just like, I don't give a fuck at this point. So she doesn't give a fuck, and she gets up and lets some rando see her in bed with her brother, and then she goes down and meets with the Iron Bank, who is apparently Mycroft from Sherlock. That's Marc Gatiss from Sherlock and Doctor Who. Yes. It was so funny to see him show up. Has he been? Yeah, he was. Okay. He was with Stannis in a couple scenes. I think I forgot that, or it just wasn't as pronounced. Yeah, the only thing I could I couldn't get it out of my head that Cersei's hanging out with Mycroft now. Like, this is crazy. I didn't know Mycroft. Like, is the Iron Bank spying on people? So yeah, what did you think of what's going on with the Iron Bank? She's in more trouble than just with her tactical decisions. She's got money problems as well. Yeah, and another thing showing how deep, this show is long. It has a lot of characters. They put a lot of hours in this, and you're still getting 10% of the book, maybe 12. Yeah. The Iron Bank, can't recommend enough reading A World of Ice and Fire. Read A World of Ice and Fire. It is like, for just an index or encyclopedia, it is really good reading. You find out about the Iron Bank. What's funny, what she mentioned was, and I guess they do this in the book, but she mentioned the Iron Bank having a hand in slavery, which is very bad because Bravos is a land of slaves. They were Valyrian slaves who escaped, and their island is kind of hidden in fog, and they hid for 100 years. It took 100 years for them to come out, and they became a huge power because of their bank. And yes, of course, if it's a bank, I guess it would be dealing in slavery. But if the Bravosi found out, that would probably be very, very bad. I thought that scene was good. I wish they would have brought that in more because Tyco is his name. He shows up in some really weird places in the book to show you the reach of the Iron Bank. Like, he shows up at the wall, like at the darkest hour. It's like, hello, I'm the bank, and I want to talk to you about money. And you're like, we're all starving to death out here. Yeah, but we need to talk about money. So they have a huge reach. It's good that they brought them up. And yeah, she is, I guess that goes to our point, is she is surrounded by enemies that she doesn't even know about. And she's still like, I'll get your money. Don't worry about it. Lannisters pay their debts. We got it. Yeah. So I also want to mention that, God, I'm going to have to work on that, Gary. I have to mention that. I'm getting rid of that. So there's no David Boreanaz effect in this show, meaning there's no one on this show of the adults that looks like that has aged in any way or gotten fat. Like, everyone, all the adults from season 1 who are still alive look exactly the same as they did when they were first introduced to the show. Lena Headey, it's been 7 years of filming this, and all of the adults Jamie hasn't aged a day. Like, he looks exactly the same as when the show started. And I think that that's unbelievable for all these actors to have maintained their look for this long. It never happens on a TV show. So it's crazy to me that they've been able to do that. I mean, aside from the kids, you're talking the adults here. Yeah, because Jon Snow has changed. I mean, go back and look. Ian Glenn as Jorah still looks the same. Jamie still pretty much looks the same. Lena Headey's a vampire and bathes in baby blood. They all look great. It's nuts to me how they've been able to do this. There's usually one actor that's just like, fuck my contract, I'm going to do whatever I want. You know what? If you take care of yourself and you eat right. And David Boreanaz was partying with strippers and drinking and partying it up every day. And actually, he looks better now than he did towards the end of Angel. So yeah, it's all about what you eat. Yeah, there's no David Boreanaz where his little shirts are getting a little tight around the side and stuff. Yeah. But no, I just want to throw that out there. It was, I was just like, wow, there's a couple 7 years, 7 seasons of this. It's crazy. Yeah. It's been, it's 7 years, it's 7 seasons, but it's been 8 years. Right? Yeah. It's been 8 years. You're right. It's been 8 years. 2011. Because they had a couple gaps. Yeah, you're right. I think it has been 8 years of filming. Yeah, I was working at Technicolor when the show premiered. I remember that because Melissa texted me saying, "You got to watch the show. It's so you." I'm like, whatever. And I got home from work at 6 a.m. and proceeded to watch, like, I think there was 4 episodes out at the time, and downloaded them illegally and watched them.
Yeah.
They got their money's worth.
So let's move on and let's finish this off with a long, probably discussion, or this will be the last part of the recap, and then we'll get into some of the predictions we have for how this is going to compare to the books. But let's talk about Dragonstone and the meeting that was promised. Let's talk about Jon and Frankie hanging out in Dragonstone. Yeah, so
and Claire de Lune.
Yeah, exactly.
Frankie and Johnny. Nah.
Tyrion and Missandei meet up with Davos and Jon as they arrive. I half expected to see Gendry like rowing around in the background, like, I told you I couldn't row a boat.
Going in circles.
Yeah, he's just been there the whole time, just looping. He can't swim either, so he's stuck in whatever boat he's in.
Yep.
But yeah, so Dragonstone. Man, these beaches in Dragonstone, these are like East Coast beaches, man. These are terrible beaches. Usually you want that beachfront property, but Dany doesn't even want to be there anymore. She's like, I was born here. I hate this place. What do you think of Jon and Dany? Like, where everyone thinks they're going to get together. They did have some sort of a bond over, like, what Tyrion explains is like, you guys are the people who protect everyone from monsters, right? Like, that's kind of the idea, is these two people who are similar in that way are going to come together. They're very skeptical of each other now, but they have a bit of a tenuous alliance by the end of it. How much of a part do you think Tyrion played in forming that alliance, or do you just think it was bound to happen?
Well, it was bound to happen, but I love the part. I mean, like, Tyrion is back, and it feels like for the first time in an entire season. And first, I want to talk about the waves of Dragonstone. There wasn't really a swell there, John, but it's kind of like Mavericks. You got to go out about a mile, right, bro? And then they get the major swells, bro. Sorry, SoCal. Tyrion was back to being Tyrion. That's what I even wrote in my notes. Tyrion's back. And I knew they were going to get together, but I was like, because it's layered. It's like, I want them to get together, but I don't want it to be easy. I don't want them to just come in and high five and have sex in the first episode. I want this to be hard. I want this to be earned. And it is ridiculous saying there's dead men running around. But if you look on the other side, there's 3 dragons flying around too. And that people would have said, that's ridiculous. And I'm surprised somebody didn't bring that up. It's like, dragons, there could be dead people walking around.
Yeah.
Just saying, so that was cool. But the funniest fucking moment was after Missandei was like, Khaleesi, breaker of chains, he's Jon Snow. He's the king of the north,
Yes.
That was hilarious.
So
I laughed my ass off, dude. That was so fucking funny. I love Davos, dude. And I like how, they're lightly dealing with it in some stuff, but like seeing Tyrion and Jon come back together, it's almost like they're going a little too fast with these. I want some of these reunions to feel like, I want this emotion, like if Gendry sees Arya again, or if the Hound sees Arya again, I want that to mean something. I want to be like in tears. It was important that the Bran reunion wasn't, but we saw Tyrion come up and they were talking about their scars, and that was cool. And Tyrion talking to Davos, and it's like, hey, we were on both sides of the Blackwater, and Tyrion essentially killed his kid. There's a lot of uncomfortable moments here. But I love the part that he played. And, and I also love shows like his first 2 moves weren't really mistakes, but they just weren't. He's trying shit. This is what he tried to do in Essos, and it ended up backfiring. He tried to play diplomat in a time where you probably should just go and kick some ass. Tyrion's great in time of peace. I don't know how great of a war strategist he is. He's a good keeping the peace strategist. He was a good hand. Despite Cersi and Joffrey, he was a good hand, and shit was getting done. So I thought it was rad. I thought it was well done. I'm glad we ended this episode with them, not hating each other.
Yeah, no, they have a 10-year, they're aligned now. And I was thinking that early on. I was like, why can't they just say like, hey, we can trust each other to some degree. Let's just deal with everything together. Let's deal with the Cersei sitting on the throne. We might need to align with her just to kill the dead people, and then we can turn on her at that point. Like, let's just align until the end, and then we can deal with this one kingdom that I supposedly have control over, right? Like why can't we just form this alliance? I get Dragonstone. We deal with all of our priorities together, and then we can go and, figure out where we stand at that point. Like, I won't turn on you. You don't turn on me. I'm not going to try to take the Iron Throne if I'm Jon. Dany says, okay, we'll deal with if you're going to be king or not at that point. Like, it seemed like that's where it should have kind of started. I don't know if that's a truth that's easy to make, but that kind of seems where they ended up in the end. Like, they ended up in a point where she's like, look, I'm not going to lose anything by giving you all my Dragonstone. I'm not going to trap you here. We'll deal with this later. They haven't made the pact to like deal with the stuff together, but they definitely aren't working against each other, which is good.
They're not, but it's still a very real possibility considering they don't know each other that they could fight someday. We doubt that, but I mean, this is in the context of the story. And also he's beholden to the North. I mean, they're pissed that he went down there in the first place. If he came back and said, I kneeled to the queen, they'd fucking behead him. They're pissed. Yes. Jon is...
They never broke bread and had salt, which after everything that's happened, you think Jon would be like, hey guys, before we start anything, got any bread? Got anything? Yeah, a little hungry, been on a boat,
a long ride. Yeah, totally. And Jon is not your typical king. He doesn't have a crown. He doesn't have a hand. He's got Sansa. That's essentially his hand.
Who's playing a different game. I mean, they're playing completely different games at this point.
Well, he's
Jon's
a symbol. I mean, he's just he's a warrior king, and he's not going to be down with kind of what Robert wanted to be, but Robert had to run a nation. He was like, oh, this isn't fun. Yeah. The scene was long for one. It was, and I liked it. I was kind of worried it was a good long scene at the beginning. And I love that they sprinkled in the Varys and Melisandre. And
in my notes, I said, this is my favorite post George R. Martin scene. Like, since they've gone off book, I think this is my favorite scene that we've gotten. Just like a normal political, like, obviously the big set pieces are cool, right? Like, anyway, there was a lot of big moments that are very, very cool. But of the like political maneuvering, they haven't done it quite as well since they've gone off book. But I liked this one particularly. I thought this one was done particularly well.
Yeah, and it makes you...
Peter Dinklage is dialed in. I felt like he was phoning it in a little bit last season, but I feel like he's on it. Like, he's the apathy he had toward being like, I think he was going through that I don't want to just be Tyrion for the rest of my life thing that actors go through when they've gone into a show for a long time and people start seeing them as one character. And I think he was playing it like, I think he was self-sabotaging it. Like, he just didn't seem dialed in. He seemed to be very apathetic in his interviews outside of the show. He was kind of a dick. And I feel like this season, some of that has changed. He seems to be a lot more dialed into the role.
Yeah, I think maybe a little grateful. I totally caught that at the rap party, not the rap party, after the premiere last season. Yeah, his whole act. Go back and watch that. He was drunk, didn't give a fuck. He was I don't think he was happy with what the role he played in it, but that's kind of what happens. And that's kind of George's fault for not having the book done. I think he has fed them some things.
Yes.
So this might have been one of them. I think like the high points, he's not going to tell you exactly what they're saying, but I'm going to tell you how, like, the whole Hodor thing. He told them that's something he told them. That's not something they would have thought up, which was fucking awesome. I thought it was the best scene, and the Varys and Melisandre scene kind of brought Melisandre back from, she it feels like she's back a little bit too. And by the way, her theme music, I had to write this down, is the best theme music in the show. It's super creepy. And yeah, that whole little exchange and her, just getting Varys, Varys shouldn't be too scared that she said he's going to die in Westeros. I mean, you could die in Westeros in 20 years.
Here's the thing. So they allude to this prophecy where they both are slated to like die in Westeros. And he seems to be the first one to initiate discussion of that prophecy, but then he seems really dour about the he's going to die too thing. And I can't figure out if he actually did know about the prophecy and he brought it up, or he just said something that was coincidentally something that she has with this prophecy and kind of let him know, yeah, we're both going to die. Because he mentions that she's going to die first. So what went on there? Is there anything you can shine light on with your amazing retention of what we've read so far? And
I think other than it was just a threat, don't come back to Westeros or you'll die because I'll have you killed. And she's like, oh, silly man, I'm coming back and I'm going to die here. And so are you, spider, and that's the first time he's been called the spider. And that's all it was. I don't think I'm sure he's aware of the prophecy. I mean, this is the spider. Knowledge is his thing, just as I know Littlefinger knows the prophecy. Right. And I would suspect that maybe both of them know the truth about Jon Snow. That's definitely something that will come to play. One thing I want to go. This is going to go back. It just made me think of it because it's totally off topic. But when Sansa was talking to her maester, and she asked her maester, and this is speaking of knowledge, just what made me think of it. She asked her maester what was the longest winter in history. And for a maester not to know that is weird. So I don't know if they just made him an idiot or because there's no way that man would have gotten a single chain not knowing what the long night was the longest winter, I believe. And it lasted generations or a generation. So yeah, I thought that was weird. And I'm trying to think, I don't know. I still think maybe Euron is just that good of a captain to know where all these ships are going, or maybe there is somebody ratting out. There's
like
a spy, and maybe it is Varys. It's a possibility. I mean, what else could you do with the character other than have him betray? I mean, she even said, "I'll burn you alive if you betray me." I guess you would bring that up. It just, to me, it seems like the spider might be up to something. Because remember, he hates all magic, and Danny is magic.
Yeah, I don't know. This is one of those that I just can't wait to see. Like, you can speculate so much about what Varys is doing, but I think that's going to be one of the biggest twists. Like one of the more. I'm hoping that I don't get spoiled on that at some point, because I just want to organically come across like his motivations for this. Like, we kind of have an insight into what Littlefinger is doing, but Varys was always the other one, right? The other tactician, the other brilliant mind, the other chess player, right? Like it was Varys and Littlefinger playing chess with one another, and so his has stayed hidden longer. And I'm hoping that I can organically experience that with everyone else, and I don't get spoiled on what Varys is up to.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't think any of us are going to get spoiled book wise because it's not coming out anytime soon. So
let's finish this off with a little bit of the military talk before we get to our kind of prediction, or the predictions of what in this episode is going to show up in the books and what isn't. So I've seen a little buzz since we watched the episode. Everyone's saying, Tyrion, man, he's a terrible military tactician. Nobody should listen to him again. Ever since the Battle of
Blackwater.
Fuck, why do I always forget that? The Battle of Blackwater, he's just had defeat after defeat after defeat. Tonight seems like it was one of those defeats. It seems like they knew that they were coming, but Tyrion seemed to know that Cersei was going to plan for something. The sacking of Casterly Rock seemed too easy. Euron came up from the back to take it back from them. Jaime Jaime does some monologuing at the end where he explains, like, we're not worried about them taking Casterly Rock. We don't care. We're going to get it back. It's impossible for them to keep. We've got all of our army here. We'll move on them later. Euron's taking them right now from the bay. If that doesn't work out, we'll mop up the pieces. Did Tyrion really make a huge blunder here? Like, is Cersei in the controlling position at this point?
Well, yes, because she's the queen. But no, Tyrion, to go in and lay waste to everything, you had to, it'll look in the eyes of the King's Landingers and the Westerosi, the fact that Daenerys did make an effort to try to do this without burning everybody to death will make a difference. And it's not unlike what Aegon tried to do when he conquered the Seven Kingdoms. I don't want to ride on my dragons and start fucking everybody up, but that's kind of what he had to eventually do. And there were some lords that were better than others, and some good ones got fried and some bad ones didn't, but that's just the way it goes. She is in the position of power. He knows King's Landing better than Dany does. But I think he underestimated Cersei. People got to stop underestimating her, and she blew up the Sept. I mean, she just took out the major religion of Westeros.
That's what they say about Cersei. Don't underestimate her. She's a brilliant political mind. You can't underestimate what she's doing. She does all these things for attention, but really she's got something else going on in the other. The political squabbling of her inner circle doesn't really mean anything. Ignore all of that. She's going to come out on top. That's what they say about Cersei.
Well, hey, the only two things that have actually come off to plan perfectly are her blowing up the Sept and the Red Wedding. Everybody else's plans have been, fucked up along the way, and it's mostly the good people by showing restraint, and that's the, and that's why Tywin, he just shouldn't have messed with Tyrion's girl. That was his, he didn't show restraint there, and it cost him his life. And Jon got his dragon glass, so as far as his military is concerned, I think his objectives were complete. He can go back with his dragon glass. Dany's helping him mine it and get it all prepared. And although she doesn't believe it, it's a good strategy. And the way Tyrion puts it off is like, hey, let him go look for his little grumpkins down there, and he'll be busy, and then we can do our thing. And that's one less guy off the table. So.
Did we like having the Tyrion voiceover during the sacking of Casterly Rock? Did that work for you?
It worked for me. Yeah,
it did, because it felt like this could have been an episode, right? Like this could have been the Battle of the Bastards with the sacking, like Casterly Rock being taken by Tyrion could have been a big thing, but it really was just a small segment of a larger episode with him just kind of telling us what his strategy was, and then having Grey Worm at the end be like, this wasn't supposed to be so easy, guys. And then Euron coming in with all his boats and taking out most of the Unsullied. Or at least we assume that they did. But yeah, it was interesting how they did it. I don't know how I feel about it. It seemed like they rushed through it a little bit, but it worked. I mean, it worked. It just seemed a little rushed to me.
Yeah, a little bit. I think it's budgetary. It still worked for me. That's the great thing about this show, and they do this in the books too, is they don't show you there's not a lot of battles in Game of Thrones, and not entire huge. I'm looking over it. The book series is this thick, and there's a few battles in it. That's it. They're done well, but there's bigger battles to come. So, and you don't want to make this show isn't all about battling. So we needed, I think the last 3 episodes are going to be, I think next week is going to be a battle. I think there'll be a battle, a big one.
So that said, let's talk a little bit about what of this we think is going to show up in the books and what we think is completely off book. So let's, where do you want to start, Gary? You're the one who knows these books like the back of your hand.
All right. Well, you want to start just scene by scene? We'll start Dragonstone.
Sure.
I think this is going to be, this will be pretty close to the book. With the characters who are there, save some, Barristan Selmy, I don't think he's going to make it back to Westeros. He's still alive in the books.
Right.
But I still don't think he makes it back to Westeros. I think
I think we can assume he's going to die,
yeah. Dany will be aligning with the Greyjoys, but it's not going to be Asha. It'll be Victarion in the books. So yeah, I think a lot of this, Dany going to Dragonstone with that
the
crew. The
basic piece you think is going to happen, where
that's going to happen.
Alliance is going to be there of families, and Jon's going to show up as kind of a final piece of that alliance.
Yes. And Jon will go to her at Dragonstone, and that's where they will meet. I think that's pretty close to. I think that's spot on.
Okay, what about Theon abandoning Yara and getting control over that?
Totally off book.
Okay.
I'm not ashamed to say that Theon is one of my favorite characters in the
me
books
too.
because you like Wesley, and if those of you who are watched Angel or Buffy, Wesley has a pretty incredible character arc. Theon is the Wesley of Game of Thrones.
I like the characters that go through some shit, like make some bad decisions and then end up like paying for those tenfold and then coming out the other side, with a new viewpoint, right? That like a powerful viewpoint. And I'm still waiting for Theon. Like Theon came out of the Reek, but he hasn't quite grappled control of his destiny yet. Like he's Batman right before he decides to be Batman, it seems. Maybe he never decides it. So that's why I'm out on, like, I'm not out on Theon. I'm just still waiting to see that last piece where he takes control of his life.
If he ever does. One of my favorite chapters in Winds of Winter is A Ghost of Winterfell, where Theon is walking around Winterfell and the Boltons have it, and there's that farce wedding going on, and there's all these murders in the castle. And Theon's kind of around all of them, but nobody suspects him at all because he's missing fingers, he's missing toes, he's missing a dick, and he's weak and he's emaciated, and nobody could possibly think he could do it. But he is also broken. Like, he can literally be two people. And that whole chapter where he goes to the werewoods and he hears his Bran call his name and he hears Bran's name through the tree. And it's amazing fucking chapter. And yeah, it's called The Ghost of Winterfell. If you want to just crack it open and read, each chapter is a story. So you can go to different chapters in these books and get a lot out of them. And each chapter has tons of layers. So it's probably my favorite chapter in all the books is Ghost of Winterfell. And he comes across a cloaked figure who could be him. There's tons of debate about it. Favorite character, yeah, that would be nothing like it. And I just want to throw out that, what do you think about Theon being the prince that was promised?
That would be interesting. I mean, I wouldn't be terribly upset about that. I mean, he goes through, if he comes out of this on the other end with some sort of power, like some like personal power, right? Like, I'm not talking about like sitting on a throne or whatever, but just like coming out of it and not being wrecked by the experience to the point where he's useless. And he actually kind of takes control of his past and is able to become something for himself. I feel like that would be a cool thing. Like I would be totally fine with him being the prince that was promised. He needs to take control at some point. Yeah, let's I think you're right. I think that's going to be off book as well. What about this reserve of dragon glass, dragonstone, dragon glass? Do you think that's going to be a thing, that they're going to get the dragon glass from Dragonstone and use that to kill all the White Walkers?
I think it'll be a plot point. I don't know how much you could mine it, and obsidian is like, it chips really easy, and where it kills the whites. But I haven't seen it kill, like, okay, so there's the whites and there's the white, so there's the others who are, what's the Night King? The Night's King is not called the Night King in the book. So there is no Night King in the book yet. He's referred to. There is no leader. We just know that there are others and then there are whites.
Right.
The
others create whites. Whites can be killed by dragonglass. We don't know what can kill the others. But yeah, I agree.
The others can get killed by dragonglass, and the whites get killed by fire. I think that'll what brings, because they've mentioned it in the books. They've mentioned it in the same way. So yes, I think that'll be similar.
Do you think that Euron and Cersei are going to form an alliance and maybe a marriage? Like, what do you think the Euron storyline is going to be similar to what we see here? Because it seemed like Euron was heading toward the Wall in the books, not to King's Landing.
Euron and Cersei, I think. Well, right now they're in the books. They're at war with each other. I mean, he's about to take on the Red Wine fleet. He's sacking Old Town, as that's where we left off in the book. I think it could. Yes, if Dany showed up, I think that's a possibility. Yes. Okay.
How about what's going on with Littlefinger and Sansa? Do you think Littlefinger hangs out with his army in Winterfell and Sansa plays Queen of the North?
No. No. Sansa, Littlefinger will not make it to Winterfell.
Okay. How about Bran? Is Bran going to make it to Winterfell?
That's a good question. I don't think so.
So when I asked earlier, do you think Bran is just going to hang out in the werewood? You think that that's his storyline for the show, but that's not. You think he's going to stay in the Three-Eyed Raven's cave?
Yep.
Okay, I agree.
Well,
it seems like he's set up there.
No, I got to take that back because they said the hold the door scene is actually in the book. So the the others do find him at some point. So I guess he's going to have to leave,
right,
at some point. Okay, so I'll take that back. Does he make it to Winterfell? I don't think so.
I think Bran is one of the safest characters as far as like plot armor in the show. Like the fact that the Three-Eyed Raven dies at some point, I just don't see that happen. I feel like the Three-Eyed Raven is the guy telling the story at the end, you know?
Well, yeah, the one in the book is like hanging on by a thread, just waiting to, to give the job to somebody else to hand off so he can die. I mean, he doesn't want to be there. He's, he's not, there's nothing left of him. He's mostly tree. And what sucks though is the backstory with the Three-Eyed Raven and who he is fucking amazing. I mean, that actually, Bloodraven is one of my favorite characters who's not a main character in the book. I want to read more books about Bloodraven because just the thought of him is badass. He's kind of the Boba Fett of Game of Thrones. Like, we've heard a lot of good things, but we've just never seen it.
Do you think in the books that Jorah is going to get cured of his grayscale? Because that goes. I mean, in the books, you've got young Griff. You've got he's got a completely different.
Yeah, no, Jorah's not going to get grayscale. Jorah's redemption is going to come through. Ooh, I have no freaking idea. Yeah. Right now, Jorah is enslaved with Tyrion, and they are on the wrong side of the siege of Meereen right now. There's a siege of Meereen, and he's trying to get the second sons. Not the second sons. I'm sorry. What is the second sons? Yeah,
it's before Dany flies off on the dragon. It's during that time where Dany flies off on the dragon because she's
gone.
That's where we left off with her. Right.
Barristan Selmy's trying to hold the city, and Tyrion's escaped from being a slave, and he joins a sellsword company. He's trying to get them because they already betrayed Dany. He's trying to get them to change sides again. That's where we left off. Yes,
and so we should probably see Jorah. Yeah, just hook up with them right there.
Well, and Jorah's been beaten ravishly. He's been branded a slave, so he's got like this giant tattoo on his face now, and apparently he just looks fucking scary. So he looks like a barbarian at this point. No, Jorah just wants to. Yeah, it's going to be a lot different. He's not going to get grayscale. Yeah, he will make it to Westeros, though. He will make it to Westeros.
Any other last pieces you want to talk about and how they relate to the books?
Olenna's death seems like Lady Olenna. I think that's might be book accurate.
Sounds probable.
Iron Bank is not book accurate. Is there anything else I'm missing here? Yeah, the Citadel stuff. I don't know how much time they have. I think the Citadel stuff, no, not accurate at all, actually. And I think Sam will probably end up taking off from the Citadel. Can I mention that we saw Bronn? He didn't say anything, but we saw Bronn.
Yeah.
We saw Bronn. That's it. No, but let's do that after every podcast. I love that. I'll be way more prepared for it, but like what's going to be on, but ooh, that's a good one, Jon. Well done.
Of course.
It's a fun subject.
So let's wrap up here. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Jon Reed 16. You can follow Gary. He runs our official Twitter feed. It's at Nerdrotics with an S. It's right up there on the screen. So please follow us on Twitter. We tweet out about a lot of the shows we watch, and a lot of our updates go out when we're going to go live with the show. So follow us there. You can also join us or like our page at facebook.com/nerdroticpodcast. Again, right up on the screen right now. It's www.facebook.com/nerdroticpodcast. We'll be doing a lot of these live shows through Be Live, where you guys can call in if you watch the show live. If you comment on the video as we are live, we'll throw those comments up on the screen. So please join us on Facebook. It'll also go up to our YouTube channel, which is the Nerdrotic channel on YouTube. So please subscribe to us there, comment on our videos. It helps a lot. Please head over to www.nerdrotic.com for all of our coverage, all of our podcasts. You can also find us in the iTunes podcast app by searching for Nerdrotic in the podcast app and clicking subscribe. If you leave us a review there, it helps us move up the rankings. So please do that as well. You can also find us on Instagram. It's Nerdrotic on Instagram. Anything else, Gary?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to do dirty laundry, but I got to mention this is for our. If you're watching us on Facebook and you're not a YouTube subscriber, apologize. But for our YouTube subscribers, who we've got a few now, and we really appreciate you. We used to do these live streams there. We're not going to be doing that for the next couple of months because YouTube gave us some mystery strike, and apparently it was through just an algorithm. They made a mistake. It was for a video that aired for 1 second. I'll be repeating this for Preacher too. There's nothing to be done about it. We've tried to appeal. They've, it's just a big machine. I can't get through to anybody. They've been very nice. So we'll be back live streaming. We're still going to use Be Live, by the way. This is going to be our platform now, but we'll be back live streaming on YouTube on October 8th. In the meantime, you can come see us live on Facebook. And Jon set this all up. And it's no big deal, whatever. But if you're wondering, we're not going to change anything. I would focus more on other stuff, but we do have a lot of subscribers, so I thought you deserved an explanation. We hope you stay on. And we'll be back with live content after October 8th on YouTube.
And if you subscribe to us on YouTube, we throw these videos up not live after the fact onto YouTube. If you're catching this and you subscribe to us on YouTube, but you don't like us on Facebook, head to the address on the screen right now, facebook.com/nerdroticpodcast. Hit like, and you can join us for the live shows through Facebook. It's fun to have you guys chatting, and I miss it. So join us here. Maybe Gary, you can splice this to the front of the video or something. I don't know if you're able to edit the videos to that degree.
I can. Okay, yeah.
Do you want to lead us out?
May the small folk sing songs of your greatness.
Awesome. Bye, everybody.